So here's Hollow Earth Part 31B. Basically, I'm going to be talking about all of these different entrances and what's known about them. Alright, so here's one of the biggest caves ever. It's called Crubera Veronia, and it's known as the Mount Everest of caves. The total length of cave passages reaching a crazy 13,232 meters. The deepest explored parts of Crubera Veronia reached 2,191 meters right there, or around 7,208 feet, making it the only known cave deeper than 2,000 meters. You know how tall that really is? This is Mount Rushmore. You could literally fit 5 Empire State Buildings in this cave. Crazy, right? Here's also where the cave is located, and I know I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so I'm just not even going to try. So the cave is divided into 2 branches, one of 1,300 meters and the other one of almost 2,200 meters of depth, which goes even further than that, dropping into several smaller slopes even further on. Hollow Earth Part 31C. This cave was actually founded in 1960 by Georgian explorers who actually had reached a depth of 180 meters. In the 1980s, the Russian-Polish expedition discovered that there were 3 caves in the Arab ecosystem, the Siberian Cave. Also in the 1980s, the Kiev Club explored the cave up to 340 meters. Then in 1999, the expedition of the Ukrainian Speleological Association, led by Yuri Kasyan, they actually made a major breakthrough in Crubera Cave by discovering and exploring 2 branches at a depth of 220 to 250 meters. So they actually found out that these branches stretched in 2 different directions, and first, the main branch was explored only to 740 meters. Then in September of 2000, they reached 1,400 meters. And in 2001, they reached 1,700 meters. Then in 2004, they reached around 2,200 meters. Basically, each year they find out the cave goes deeper and deeper, so who knows if this could be an inner Earth entrance or not. Hollow Earth Part 31D. Alright, moving on to the supposed entrances in this picture, going from top left down to top right down. Starting with the Kentucky Mammoth Cave, which was previously mentioned in the series. It's located in western Kentucky, and it's been an attraction for over 200 years, even a United States national park. So Mammoth Cave is said to be the longest cave on Earth, spanning supposedly 400 miles, but it could definitely go longer than that. Here's the mouth of the cave, aka the historic entrance, and this is basically the classic entrance of Kentucky Mammoth Cave. So if you went there on a tour, this is probably the entrance you went through. That historic entrance literally leads to 400 miles of cave passages. If you were to combine the world's 2nd and 3rd longest caves, Mammoth Cave would still be longer by over 100 miles. And Mammoth Cave does reveal new passages each time new explorations are made. Maybe they don't want us to go in there without guided tours because they don't want anyone getting lost. Hollow Earth Part 31E. The next entrance on the list is Manaus, Brazil, and Morona, Santiago in Ecuador. So this is Juan Morix. He's basically the guy who discovered this cave. So Juan started investigating in Ecuador and could speak in Hungarian with 3 tribes, the Kahari, the Mochica, and the Paruha. I'm sorry if I pronounced those wrong. Morix actually discovered many tunnels and caves throughout Brazil, including the Teos Cave in Ecuador, as well as this cave in Manaus, which I couldn't find much on other than this video of this guy who lives near the cave, but listen to what he has to say about it.
Cave opening. No, not the mythical agartha. That's just what that's been called since I was a kid, as long as I can remember. I'm not sure why.
You're not sure?
This is Agartha Cave. It's the entrance to Agartha. Now, when I say Agartha, I don't mean the mystical inner Earth realm, even though it is after that. This is just
Hollow Earth Part 31F. Next we got Mato Grosso. It's also in Brazil. It's actually right next to Manaus. So here's a list of the supposed entrances, and it says Mato Grosso, Brazil, City of Passid. So I did some research and I tried to look up that, but I couldn't find anything. Except this, which was indeed very weird. It says, I am Galatrell, 3rd level member of the Council of Passid, beneath Mato Grosso in the country of Brazil. I have been in this position for many of your lifetimes, and I have spent much of my service reaching out to heal the energies of the past. We who inhabit the resurrected city of Passid, now a wondrous and beautiful abode of light in the 5th dimension, and all of us living in other Atlantean energy cities within the earth. Okay, what the fuck? Sadly, the credibility of this source is difficult to determine because I don't know who Galatrell is or if it's even a real person. But the fact that they mention this place as a wondrous and beautiful abode of light in the 5th dimension is a little weird considering Mato Grosso is on the list of supposed entrances to Inner Earth. Hollow Earth 31F Part 2. So, considering that and the fact that Mato Grosso has important deposits of iron ore, manganese, limestone, and tin, as well as livestock raising and agriculture being their principal economic activities, it might have something to do with the stories we hear about people from Agartha coming through caverns with cattle. And more specifically from the story of the children of Woolpit. Now, I did explain the children of Wool Pit previously, but basically to sum it up, there were two children who appeared out of a cave and had claimed to have followed their cattle too far until they emerged onto the bright landscape. Here's what one of the caves by Mato Grosso looks like. Here's another one. So if I were to make a guess as to where I think the entrance in Mato Grosso is, I think our best bet's the waterfall Marabambo. Hollow Earth 31G. Next up is Iguazu Falls. In 1541, this guy, Alvar Nunes Cabeza de Vaca, was a European explorer who was actually the person who discovered the falls. Iguazu Falls is located right here on the border of Argentina and Brazil, and it basically divides the river into upper and lower levels. The Iguazu waterfall system makes up 1.7 miles of the Iguazu River and consists of 275 waterfalls. What the fuck? It was also added to the 7 Wonders of Nature in 2011, and it also has the highest annual average flow, even more than Niagara Falls. So I looked for caves around Iguazu Falls and I found the Garganta do Diabo and Canyon Iguacu. Now, I found nothing that confirmed either of these to be the entrance to Agartha, so my best educated guess would be it's somewhere around the Iguazu Falls, you know? Lower Earth Part 31H. Next we got Monte Pomeo in Italy. Monte Pomeo is actually the highest mountain in Ischia and can be seen from most of the points on the island, standing 789 meters tall or 2,589 feet. As you can see, it towers over the rest of Ischia and is covered in lush greenery with a few vineyards also occupying its slopes. So according to IschiaReview.com, it says the origins of Monte Pomeo date back to the Quaternary period when it was originally formed by an underwater eruption, although it is more the result of an uplift of magmatic masses from the seabed. It also says in one of the tufa stone caves dotted around the mountain, a small church and hermitage were built in honor of St. Nicholas. This church is one of the oldest and most unusual churches in Ischia. It was completely carved out of the volcanic green tufa stone that is unique to Ischia, and in this cave, monks and secular hermits from Ischia and further afield lived in meditation while going about their daily tasks. It's said that there's many caves around the mountain, and here's one of them. Could be the entrance. Hollow Earth Part 31I. Now we're going to take a look at the Great Pyramid of Giza. So according to Ancient Aliens Season 12, the Great Pyramid is actually one of the most enigmatic structures on Earth, which basically means it's the hardest to understand. Also the only surviving wonder of the ancient world, and it brings questions such as its purpose and how it was constructed. Since the pyramid has been made, researchers have been amazed by the mathematical knowledge that's encoded into the pyramid. The measurements used as well as the placement of the pyramid has aroused great interest among Egyptologists. The pyramid is aligned within 360th of a degree of north, a more accurate alignment than any other structure on Earth. Very, very close to true north. And considering the fact that the Earth's axis has been shifting slowly, which is known as precesses, it could have been more accurate. The pyramid was also placed at the precise location of the center of the world's landmass. We use cubits as a form of measurement, and what's interesting about cubits is it's exactly 1/25 millionth of the polar diameter of the Earth. So the distance from the North to South Pole, if you cut it into 25 million pieces, there's your cubit. Here's Hollow Earth Part 31I Part 2. So if you take the length of the Great Pyramid, it translates to 365.242 cubits long, which just so happens to be the earthly year down to a quarter day. Also, if you take the length and width of the perimeter of the Great Pyramid, it corresponds to an exact fraction of latitude and longitude measurements at the equator. So scaled up, this basically means that the Great Pyramid directly corresponds with the circumference of the equator as well as the measurement of the equator to the pole, making it a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere. Another very interesting thing is that if you take the location of the Great Pyramid as a coordinate, which is that, the number sequence of this coordinate matches exactly to the speed of light traveling through space measured in meters per second. I am not capping. So when you see the vast majority of information about the Earth that's encoded into the Great Pyramid, you can't just dismiss it as coincidence. Considering all that, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the tombs in the Great Pyramid led further down, extending deep into cavernous regions deep in the Earth's interior. There has to be a reason why these locations are on the list of entrances. Here's Hollow Earth Part 31J. I'm going to talk about the King Solomon Mines. According to History.com, the biblical Solomon, a king of Israel and son of King David, was renowned for his fabled wisdom, power, and his personal fortune, which is often described as one of the largest in the ancient world. But while Solomon's famed wealth is a story as old as the ages, the popular fascination with locating a portion of this fantastic fortune is a more recent affair. The idea of mines full of riches was first introduced in the late 19th century by author H. Rider Haggard in his blockbuster adventure novel King Solomon Mines. And after he posted this, it coincided with a bunch of archaeological discoveries in ancient sites in the Middle East and in Africa. Half a century later, American rabbi and archaeologist Nelson Glueck made headlines of his own when he announced that he located Solomon Mines in the Great Rift Valley near the modern-day boundary of Israel and Jordan. So these were actually extensive copper smelting plants, and samples from Israel's Timma Valley confirmed a connection between the ancient copper mines and the era of the biblical Solomon, but this doesn't mean it's the same mine. All I'm going to say is I hope it gets found, because then there's our entrance. Here's Hollow Earth Part 31K. So we're talking about the Diro caves, and the closest thing that I could find was the spectacular cave complex of Diros in the Peloponnese, right by Diros in Ittio, Greece. Right here. The biggest and most popular cave in the Diros complex is Vlaishata. It has beautiful formations of stalactites and stalagmites that were formed millions of years ago when the sea located just a few meters away started to rise and form the lake that we see today. The cave has a 1.5 kilometer route with a series of vast caverns stretching 15 kilometers into the rock with 2,800 waterways. And this is only what we know so far. So Vlaishata's exploration started in 1949 and has yielded fascinating finds, including the fossil of hippopotamus from the late Pleistocene epoch, around 32,000 years ago, as well as evidence of panthers, lions, spotted hyenas, ferrets, and seals. What the? Finds in the Alapatripa cave suggested that people who lived there were from an advanced community. Alapatripa is another cave in the Diros complex which the public doesn't have access to. Part 31K2 next. Hollow Earth Part 31K Part 2. 2014, there was a discovery in the Alapatripa cave of the remains of a couple aged 5,800 years old. There it is. Their grave was actually part of one of the biggest Neolithical burial grounds ever found in Europe, even having an ossuary as well as several ceramic urns and beads among other offerings, suggesting that the people were members of an advanced civilization. I want to read the rest of this here. Go ahead. Pause that. This basically confirms that there were people living in caves around 6,000 years ago and used them as storage for food and other goods. Yeah, man, I don't know for sure, but that's like a spotlight for me. So my best guess would be that it's probably one of the caves in the Diros complex. Could be Alapatripa, could be Vlaishata, who knows? Hollow Earth Part 31L. We're gonna cover Mount Shasta in California. So some people in Mount Shasta believe that the lost continent called Lemuria is hidden beneath the mountain along with its capital crystalline city Teos. Some think Lemuria exists only in the mind. Others say they've seen tall-robed Lemurians shopping in town or traveling in and out of the mountain in cloud-shaped UFOs. The physical appearance of Lemurians has been debated for years. Some people believe they look like highly evolved humans, like the description of Saint Germain, while others believe they have more animalistic qualities, but their height is something agreed upon by all. In 1899, Frederick Spencer Oliver published A Dweller on Two Planets, a book which claimed the survivors from a sunken continent called Lemuria were living on Mount Shasta. In the book, Lemurians actually lived in a series of complex tunnels beneath the mountain, and locals would sometimes see creatures wandering outside the mountain in white robes. In 1904, British prospector J.C. Brown claimed to find an underground city 11 miles in the mountain full of gold, shields, mummies, and some of which were 10 feet tall. Here's where the sus comes in. Part 32L Part 2 next. Hollow Earth Part 31L Part 2. So after J.C. Brown found out about this underground city 11 miles deep, he told people about it and got a crew ready to go explore the mountain. The group came up with an 80-person team to explore the mountain for the underground city, but on the day that the team was supposed to set out, J.C. Brown disappeared. Come on, dude! Also, here's a picture of what Lemurians could look like. Here's Hollow Earth Part 31M. Next, we're doing the Himalayan mountains, and it says the entrance to the underground city of Shanxi is supposedly guarded by Hindu monks. Here's the Himalayas. Himalayas include the highest mountains in the world, with more than 110 peaks rising to elevations of 24,000 feet, or 7,300 meters. And one of those is even Mount Everest, the world's highest, with an elevation of 29,035 feet, or 8,850 meters. So supposedly, within the Himalayan mountains is a hidden monastery known as Kimbalong, or Shangri-La, where Hindu monks guard the entrance to the underground city of Shanxi. Tibetans usually believe that the land is guarded by beings with superhuman powers, and supposedly sightings of these beings is normal to them. People, especially Tibetan lamas, have been searching for Shambhala for centuries, and some have found it, but those who seek the kingdom often never return, either because they found the hidden country and have remained there, or because they have been destroyed in the attempt. Part 31M Part 2 next. Hollow Earth Part 31M Part 2. In the Himalayas, a Tibet expedition in 1938 was intended to produce new findings relating to early Germanic history. Believed in a Nordic master race that was supposed to have survived the demise of the legendary Atlantis. The sacred tradition of the Hindus in the Himalayas are extensive caves and underground tunnels to what are called the Nagas, or serpent people, who I did previously discuss. Traditions say that they could fly around in magical machines. The underground cities were lit by magical stones, and supposedly even treasure guarded by the Nagas. Now, I have no clue where the Himalayan entrance is, but it did say a hidden monastery, so it's somewhere in the mountain. Hollow Earth Part 31N. Next we're doing Mongolia, and it says the underground city of Xinhua is supposedly found beneath the border of Mongolia and China. Supposedly this cave represents a place of the origin of humankind. So in 1996, an American, Russian, and Mongolian joint expedition found traces of human settlement in White Cave, dating back to 750,000 years, and this finding represents so far the most ancient of its kind in the world. Now that is pretty crazy, since Xinhua is supposed to be beneath the border of Mongolia and China. So here's the two closest caves to the border of Mongolia and China. This one is called Satsin Sagan Had. This one is Shilin Bog de Yule. The entrance is probably one of these, or it's a hidden location. Oh yeah, here's the inside of White Cave. And here's another cave in China that has exotic plants where they shouldn't be. Hollow Earth Part 31-0. So the last entrance is Rama, India, and it says beneath the surface city is a long-lost subterranean city, some claim, also known as Rama. So I couldn't find a specific city called Rama. I'm going to assume they're talking about Ayodhya, which is where Rama was born. For those who don't know, we did slightly cover Rama already, and he's basically the most widely worshipped Hindu deity, the embodiment of chivalry and virtue. There are 3 Ramas mentioned in Indian tradition, however, this is referring to Ramachandra, the supposed 7th incarnation or avatar of Vishnu. His story is mentioned in the Mahabharata, and it's even talked about more in the Ramayana. So my best guess for an entrance is probably one of these Hindu temples in Ayodhya, either Hanuman Gari Mandir or Amaji Mandir.